for this visit in this area is the pastimes of Krishna after leaving Vrindavan. Maybe we can feel the separation from Vrindavan by doing this. And a chapter that starts this Mathura Lila is chapter 51, The Deliverance of Mucukunda. A good place to start to find out about the deliverance of Mucukunda is who is Mucukunda. So a few things about Mucukunda. There's several descriptions of him from different scriptures, of course, different days of Brahma included. But Mucukunda received his inspiration to become Krishna's devotee from Garga Muni. Garga Muni was perfected soul. He lived in Mathura. He was a Brahmana, and he's the one that did the name-giving ceremony for Krishna and Balaram. But he's mentioned in a number of places where his pure devotion for Krishna is just outstanding. Like how he described Krishna's name in such a way that he wouldn't disturb Nanda's devotion. Anyway, Mucukunda also had the good fortune of having Garga Muni do his astrological chart. And his chart showed that he would one day meet Krishna. So from hearing that, from the learned, much respected Garga Muni, for thereafter, his devotion for Krishna was very strong. Although he had never seen Krishna, and when he finally did see Krishna, he didn't recognize him because he hadn't seen him before. But that's where his bhakti began. There's a nice statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Haya Sadhu Sangha. Mula, the root cause for devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. This is Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatana Goswami. So he's carrying Krishna Bhakti because he received Krishna Bhakti from a Krishna Bhakta, a very elevated Krishna Bhakta. So going back from chapter 51, there's chapter 53. Krishna's entering Mathura, and he encounters, what doesn't include his encounter with the washerman and the weaver and the florist, but those nice exchanges. And they spend the night outside the city of Mathura. And then in the morning, when Krishna goes in the gate, as you see, there's the gate, entrance into Mathura, here comes Kuvalyapita. Because this was part of Kamsa's plan to kill Krishna. Kuvalyapita was humongous. He was as big as several elephants, really, really, really big. And they intoxicated him up really, really big. And so he was wild. There's an interesting history that's important in understanding the events with Jarasandha and the two daughters of Jarasandha who married Kamsa. The two daughters of Jarasandha married Kamsa. Here's the history. Both Jarasandha and Kamsa were powerful, powerful, powerful heroes. Once Jarasandha was off on a hunting expedition. In the course of his hunting expedition, he managed to capture Kuvalyapita. He put chains around the legs of Kuvalyapita so he couldn't go anywhere, and he was out and about looking for other wild animals he could capture and bring back to his capital city, Magadha. Well, as fate would have it, Kuvalyapita was able to escape. He pulled out the iron chains from with their stakes and started running. And the direction that he ran happened to be in a direction where Kamsa was sitting in meditation. And when Kuvalyapita saw Kamsa and Kamsa saw Kuvalyapita, they had a battle. And Kamsa was so powerful, he twirled Kuvalyapita around and around and tossed him miles in the air and went crashing down in the very camp where Jarasandha had him captured. And Jarasandha went, wow, let me find out where that came from. So he followed the direction from which Kuvalyapita came. He met Jarasandha. And so they had a discussion, and Jarasandha wanted to honor the prowess of Kamsa. So powerful. Who could do this? He said, I want to make you two gifts. Basically, make an alliance. The alliance gift was you keep Kuvalyapita as yours, your pet. You're in your palace instead of, or your capital instead of mine. And I'll give you my two daughters in marriage. Through marriage, then an alliance between two kings. And Asti and Prapti were the two daughters. They married Kamsa. So that's the history behind Kuvalyapita. And when Kuvalyapita came, Krishna didn't flinch. Rather, he grabbed Kuvalyapita by the trunk and yanked really hard. And when he yanked really hard, he went crashing to the ground. And when he went crashing to the ground, Krishna broke off his tusks. When he broke off his tusks, he started using his tusks to smash Kuvalyapita. And smashed him, and Balaram smashed him from the other side. And eventually, Kuvalyapita died by the power of Krishna and Balaram using his own tusks. Everyone was astonished because Kuvalyapita was wild and humongous, and these two young men at that stage, they were not yet 12 years old, and they killed Kuvalyapita. So very proud, they went striding into the wrestling arena with a bloodied tusk over their shoulder, each one of them. And when they came into the wrestling arena, this is chapter 44, there was a wrestling match. There were 5 brothers. You see the 3 brothers in the background, back here. And Chanur and Mushtaka were the ones who were fighting. And we see there's Kamsa up there, very intent on seeing his plan successful. It certainly looked like a mismatch. Look how powerful those wrestlers are. And Krishna's just a 12-year-old boy. Here's a close-up of that painting. There's the 3 brothers the people in the audience in the background. Even a closer picture, Chanura is perspiring and Krishna is smiling. And after Krishna finished Chanura and Balaram finished Mushtaka, the three brothers jumped up on the wrestling arena and they began fighting, but they were all three defeated. And after the five powerful wrestlers were all defeated by Krishna and Balaram, Krishna looked out of the corner of his eye at Kamsa. Nice description. It says in the Bhagavatam that he glanced at Kamsa like a lusty boy glances at a young girl. He wanted to let him have it. He jumped up, grabbed him from his throne, pulled him down by his hair, knocked him down, and one punch. And this powerful Kamsa was powerful enough to throw Kuvalyapita in the air several miles. One punch, and Kamsa was finished. There you see Balaram in the background, very casually onlooking, and the crowd in the wrestling around the wrestling arena cheering Krishna on. The details of this painting are shown here. Kamsa's finished. One punch, finished. And Krishna wanted to be sure that everyone in the assembly knew that he was dead, not just knocked out. So Krishna grabbed him by the hair and dragged him around the whole wrestling arena, and they showered flowers on Krishna, celebrated defeater of Kamsa. It was a big event, killing Kamsa. After Krishna killed Kamsa, he straight away went to the prison house where his mother and father were, and he released them from their shackles. There's other nice paintings of how they embraced, etc., etc. Big relief. And one of the first things that Krishna did, of course, he's still a little boy, but he is a member of the royal family. He's in the Yadu dynasty. So under his direction, Ugrasena was again installed as the king, because Ugrasena was the father of Kamsa, and when Kamsa took over the throne, he put his father in prison. So after Krishna installed Ugrasena, what was the next thing? He went to school. Well, he got his Upanayana, because traditionally Kshatriya boys at the age of 11 or 12, that's when their Upanayana occurs. So he received his sacred thread now as a Kshatriya boy from Gargamuni. And he then, his parents wanted, and Krishna selected his school. He went to school for 2 months, and he learned everything in 2 months. And then returned. And when he returned, he had promised he would meet again with Kubja. So he met with Kubja. He promised again that he would meet with Akrura. After they entered Mathura, there was a promise made, and he kept his promise. There's a long section describing their discussion. At this stage also, Krishna sent a messenger to see what was going on in Hastinapur, because he heard there was intrigue, so he wanted to get a report. So things like that were going on. So now we're one chapter ahead of chapter 51, which was chapter 50. Chapter 50 is entitled Krishna Establishes the City of Dwarka. So the history behind this, Krishna's establishing Dwarka, goes back to Jarasandha. Jarasandha was the son of King Brihadrat. Brihadrat was the king of Magadha, and he had no son. although he had two queens. Both were daughters of the king of Kashi. And so he went to the forest to undergo austerities, and by chance, one rishi named Chandra Kaushika Rishi took pity upon Brihadrath. He gave him a mango, whereby his co-wives, by eating the mango, would bear a child. Well, sure enough, the two co-wives, taking each a half of the mango, gave birth to a half a child. And they were shocked. And King Brihadrath was also shocked. What are you going to do with the half a child? And so he discarded the half a child. And fortunately for that half a child, a demon named Jara found them all. The demon, she was ready to eat them, but she, out of curiosity, she joined the two halves and became a whole. And she understood these two halves were the son of King Brihadrath. So he went to Brihadrath and says, "Here's your son. I put the two halves together and now he's one. And I just have one request. Please name the child after me." And so Jara Sanda, Sanda means the joining of the two halves by Jara. That's how he got his name. Now, when the two daughters of Jarasandha, we mentioned already, they were given in marriage to Kamsa, Asti and Prapti. When they were given in marriage to Kamsa, when Krishna killed Kamsa, they became widows. So what did the two girls do? They went back to daddy. Take revenge! Take revenge! Immediately, in great anger, made a revenge utterance. I'm going to destroy Krishna. Now remember, Krishna at this time is residing in Mathura. So he gathered together 13 Akshohini divisions of soldiers. So in case you're not clear what's an Akshohini, here's what one Akshohini is. And he had 13 of them. 21,000 plus chariots, 21,000 plus elephants, 109, 350 infantry, people on foot soldiers, and then soldiers on horses, cavalry, 65,000 plus. That's one. He had 17 of them. So he went marching from Magadha to Mathura with the plan of defeating, destroying the citizens of Mathura, the capital of Mathura, and especially Krishna. Well, that's not what happened. What happened was there was a big battle, and Krishna alone against all those soldiers, and Krishna defeated them all. And when Krishna defeated them all, he just left one soldier standing on the battlefield, Jarasandha. Krishna smiled, said, "You can go home now." Jarasandha was humiliated. And on his way back to Magadha, he was considering, this is too humiliating. I just don't give up my life. But when he got back to Magadha, his ministers convinced him, no. It's just one of those things. You weren't prepared, and he was prepared, and gather up another army and do it again. And so he did it again. And same thing happened again. Each time, additional Akshohini divisions. He was good at gathering the demons to fight against Krishna. Krishna thought, this is a good plan. I don't have to go anywhere. I came into this world to destroy the demons, and they're coming to me, so I can just destroy them one after the next. Over a period of 25 years, that's how long it's estimated that Krishna stayed in Mathura, He came 17 times with so many Akshohini divisions of soldiers, and Krishna defeated them each time. Same method, leaving just Jarasandha standing on the battlefield alone and send him back home. So it's to Jarasandha's credit, he's very determined for the wrong reasons, but very determined. So if demons can be determined and they don't have Krishna's sanction for their determination, what about the devotees? When we know that there's something that Krishna wants, we should be very determined to follow through. So what happened, there's a long story where, I'll tell you the long story. There's a couple versions of the long story. But the son of Gargamuni had a daughter, Gargi. She shows up many times in Rupa Goswami's writings. Gargya was his son. And we'll hear the story, but Gargya was insulted badly by some members of the Yadu dynasty. So he became very angry and he went to undergo austerities. We'll read the whole story. He wanted to take revenge against the Yadu dynasty. Not Gargamuni, but his son. So he underwent austerities for a long time, very severe. You'll hear the details. Lord Shiva appeared. You want some benediction? What is that? I'd like to have the benediction of having a son who will bring terror to the Yadu dynasty. Not kill them. Bring terror to the Yadu dynasty. So be it. Lord Shiva's benediction. That son happened to be Kalyavana. Now we'll hear, how did Gargya end up being the father of Kalyavana? We spent some time yesterday sorting out who are the Yavanas. Remember? Who are the Yavanas? So we found out from the Bhagavatam, King Yayati and his dynasty, they're called Yavanas. And according to the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's purport, the Yavanas were given the countryside of Turkey to rule. So those persons who are descendants of Maharaj Yayati ruling so that the Turkish soldiers were notorious for being very fierce and very intense. So the leader amongst them was Kalyavana. We'll hear some more. So one time, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes from Vishnu Purana, the history of Kalyavana, this history that I've been telling you. So when he was in South India, he worshipped Lord Shiva by eating powdered iron only for 12 years. Yummy, huh? And this was his request. He wanted a son that would bring terror to the Yadavas. So that was sanctioned. And what happened was, the childless king of the Yavanas requested a son from Gargya, who begot a son in his wife, who was Kalyavana. And Kalyavana was so powerful, and specifically, according to the benediction of Lord Shiva, who would bring terror to the Yadus. So Kalyavana was visited one time by Narada Muni. Narada Muni gets around. And he wanted to know from Narada Muni Who is the most powerful person or powerful king in the whole world? He said, the Yadus. Where do I find them? They're in Mathura. So he went to Mathura, as you see, from the northerly direction, 3 million Yavanas, not exactly sent by Narada, but that was his plan. Here's what Sanatana Goswami writes in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Slightly different, but almost the same. Because Gargya and others were inimical to the Yadavas and the Pandavas, who were all staunch Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva rewarded their worship with imperfect boons. According to Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad, Gargya was a learned son of the sage Garga, who was too proud of his acquired knowledge. By Lord Shiva's blessing, Gargya obtained a son, but not one who would destroy the Yadu dynasty as Gargya had wanted, only one who could frighten and frustrate the Yadus. That's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, slightly different. So it so happened that Kalyavana was planning to attack Mathura from the north at the same time that Jarasandha was coming for the 18th time from the east. Now here's the text where it describes what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is writing from Vishnu Purana. The same understanding is presented in Garga Samhita. And here's the statement from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. So slightly different between Brihat Bhagavatamrita and the other references. So when Kalyavana came from the north with his 3 million soldiers, and the report was very soon Jarasandha is coming from the east, Krishna turned to Balaram and said, this is very serious. There could be difficulty for the Yadus. So you hold them off, and I'm going to go put the members of the Yadu dynasty in a safe place. So he had Vishwakarma quickly build Dwarka. He transferred mystically everybody to Dwarka, gave them the residential quarters. He came back to the battlefield where Kalyavana is searching for Krishna, and he saw Krishna moving about the battlefield, not on a horse. And so he dismounted from his horse, dropped his weapons. Krishna had no weapons. And Krishna started to run. Now soldiers, Kshatriyas, don't run. It's not proper. It's against Kshatriya code. But he ran. And Krishna's running from the battlefield. In one sense, it's irreligion. Just like stealing is irreligion, right? Stealing is irreligion. So you don't steal. But Krishna was stealing. He was stealing butter. So he's celebrated for stealing butter. What's Krishna's name for stealing butter? Chor means to steal. Makan means butter. So the butter thief. Krishna is celebrated as the butter thief. It's one of his nice names. And Krishna's running from the battlefield. Ran Chor is also a nice name for Krishna, Ranchor. Although it's sinful, it's irreligious, it's against the codes of Dharma. Krishna ran from the battlefield. So Kalyavana was chasing him, saying bad names. You coward, you this, you that, stop and fight. Krishna smiled, looked over his shoulder, and kept running. The running went on for miles. Krishna was leading Kalyavana to a cave. Why was he taking him to a cave? Because inside the cave was Mucukunda. What was Mucukunda doing in a cave? Mucukunda had been engaged. He was such a powerful warrior that the demigods requested him to come to the heavenly planets and help them defeat the demons who were attacking in the heavenly planets. He went and he fought for a long time, day and night, years. He was very tired. Finally, the demigods had another commander in chief. The other commander in chief was the son of Lord Shiva Kartikeya. He took over the leadership, and the demigods were very grateful. You've helped us. Please request any benediction you would like that's within our power to grant. And he said, I'd like to sleep for a long time. And just so that nobody will wake me up when I'm sleeping, in case you have to come back and ask me for some more fighting, when I open my eyes, whoever I see who wakes me up, they'll immediately burn to ashes. So it was granted, because it's part of Krishna's Leela, for Mucukunda to cinder Mucukunda to burn to a crisp Kalyavana. So when Kalyavana went in the cave searching for Krishna, he saw a body lying down. He thought maybe he's tired, and so he went over and kicked him. And when he kicked Mucukunda, Mucukunda opened his eyes, and from his eyes, as you see in the painting, the entire body of Kalyavana burned into ashes. So who is Mucukunda anyways? We did a little bit of description. He is said to be the son of Mandata. Mandata was not in the Yadu dynasty, he was in the Surya dynasty. The Yadu dynasty is in the Moon dynasty. And the other transcendental dynasty is the Sun dynasty, same as Ikshvaku, same dynasty. By this time, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur writes, Mucukunda was extremely old, having taken birth at the very beginning of this Manvantar. When people see him, they will say, who is this very tall and stout man? Because he's from a different Manvantar. So now this statement, this is from our commentators. This statement by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is drawn from a different Purana than the Bhagavatam, and it's describing a different day of Brahma. How is that? Krishna appears once in the day of Brahma. So there's different days of Brahma, and therefore there's different appearances of Krishna and different activities of Krishna's associates. So the one that's described in the Bhagavatam is this day of Brahma, but Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is describing a previous day of Brahma from some Purana other than the Bhagavad Purana. The detail. Here are some of the characteristics or qualities. He received a blessing, as we heard, from Gargamuni, that he would see Krishna. In his character, he was very devoted to supporting the Brahmanas. He was known to be true to his vow. He was very selfless, like this example of fighting on behalf of the demigods. He left his kingdom, and as he was in that demigod realm, his kingdom was finished because time in the heavenly planets and time here is different. So his whole kingdom was gone. But just to assist the demigods, he went. He was very wise. Dhimate, it's described right in the Bhagavatam, and undeviatingly determined, while at the same time very humble. When the demigods sent him back from the heavenly realm because he requested, um, they said, we're not able to give you liberation, but Krishna can give you liberation. So that's what happened. Now, when he cindered Kalyavana, he saw in the cave this effulgent something. So he spoke to whoever it was, and who are you? I've never seen a person effulgent like this. Are you a demigod, or please tell me who you are? I'll read a little bit what he said. It's really nice. Who are you who have come to this mountain cave in the forest, having walked on the thorny ground with feet as soft as lotus petals? Perhaps you are the potency of all potent beings. Or maybe you are the powerful god of fire, or the sun god or moon god, or the king of heaven, or the ruling demigod of some other planet, because he's this effulgent, powerful person. I think you are the supreme personality among the three chief gods, meaning Vishnu. Since you drive away the darkness of this cave as a lamp dispels darkness with its light. O best among men, if you like, please, truly, describe your birth and activities and lineage to us. He's saying us, but he's the only one. We're eager to hear. So Krishna is going to answer his question. O tiger among men, we belong to the family of fallen Kshatriyas. No, excuse me, this is still Mucukunda speaking. He's saying he's from the Ikshvaku line. My name is Mucukunda, my lord, and I am the son of Yovanashva. I was fatigued after remaining awake for a long time, and my senses were overwhelmed by sleep. Thus I slept comfortably here in this solitary place until just now someone woke me up. The man who woke me was burnt to ashes by the reaction of a sense. Just then I saw you, possessing a glorious appearance and the power to chastise your enemies. Your unbearably brilliant effulgence overwhelms our strength, and thus we cannot fix our gaze upon you, O exalted one. You are to be honored by all embodied beings. So, who are you? Krishna's reply, my dear friend, I've taken thousands of births, lived thousands of lives, and accepted thousands of names. In fact, my births, activities, and names are limitless, and thus even I cannot count them. After many lifetimes, someone might count the dust particles on the earth, but no one can ever finish counting my qualities, activities, names, and births. O king, the greatest sages enumerate my births and activities which take place throughout the three phases of time, but never do they reach the end of them. Nevertheless, O friend, I will tell you about my current birth, name, and activities. Kindly hear. Some time ago, Lord Brahma requested me to protect religious principles and destroy the demons who were burdening the earth. Thus I descended in the Yadu dynasty in the home of Anakundundubi. Anakundundubi is the name of Vasudeva, his father. How did he get the name Anakundundubi? It said that when Vasudeva was born, from the sky the demigods played drums and blared horns and great festivity, indicating here is a perfectly truthful person. Thus the name Anakundundubi. Indeed, because I am the son of Vasudeva, people call me Vasudeva. Since in the past you repeatedly prayed to me, I have personally come to this cave to show you mercy, for I am affectionately inclined to my devotees. Now, choose some benediction from me, O saintly king. I will fulfill all your desires. One who has satisfied me need never again lament. Pretty nice introduction. Who are you? He's indicated his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So far, the name that he's given is Vasudeva. So this is that feature of Krishna, as you see, the four-armed form of Krishna. Now, in this painting, it shows Mucukunda is really tall, Krishna really short. Not because of age, but because he's from a different yuga, very tall. So we just read when Krishna responded to his wanting to know who was standing in front of him. And after Krishna gives his response, let's hear what Mucukunda says. Mucukunda is going to tell his story. Powerful, very humble. Previously proud, previously foolish because of his pride, and now his pride is gone. So he's very clear. O Lord, the people of this world, both men and women, are bewildered by your illusory energy. Unaware of their real benefit, they do not worship you, but instead seek happiness by entangling themselves in family affairs, which are actually sources of misery. That person has an impure mind who, despite having somehow or other automatically obtained the rare and highly evolved human form of life, does not worship your lotus feet, like an animal that has fallen into a blind well. Such a person has fallen into the darkness of a material home. I have wasted all this time, O unconquerable one, becoming more and more intoxicated by my domain and opulence as an earthly king, misidentifying the mortal body as the self, becoming attached to children, wives, treasury, and land. I suffered endless anxiety. With deep arrogance, I took myself to be the body, which is a material object like a pot or wall, thinking myself God among men. I traveled the earth surrounded by my charioteers, elephants, cavalry, foot soldiers, and generals, disregarding you in my deluding pride. A man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done, intensely greedy, and delightful in sense enjoyment, is suddenly confronted by you, who are ever alert, like a hungry snake licking its fangs before a mouse. You appear before him as death. The body that at first rides high and fierce elephants or chariots adorned with gold is known by the name King, but later, by your invincible power of time, called feces, worms, or ashes. Having conquered the entire circle of directions, and being thus free of conflict, a man sits on a splendid throne, receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers, where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal. O Lord, pretty graphic. When the material life of a wandering soul has ceased, O Achyuta, he may attain the association of your devotees. And when he associates with them, there awakens in him devotion unto you, who are the goal of the devotees and the Lord of all causes and their effects. Now, here's the verse that we just read, and it's described that this particular verse is a literary ornament, or alankara. It's a literary ornament. That's what alankara means. And the reason is emphasis is made to an extreme degree, because in other words, normally it's the association of devotees that enables one to transcend material existence. But this is stated in reverse. Ati Shayokti is an apparent aversion of sequence. So the real sequence is the merciful association of Lord's devotees makes possible our determination to become Krishna conscious. This is a comment by our acharyas. In other words, in his excitement, he's speaking in such a way, it's an alankar, it's a literary ornament, that the cause and effect are reversed. The glorious thing, the transcending material existence, is made possible by the association of devotees. But he says it in reverse order. We're almost done with this section. My Lord, you've asked me for a benediction. I think you have shown me mercy, since my attachment to my kingdom has spontaneously ceased. Such freedom is prayed for by saintly rulers of vast empires who desire to enter the forest for a life of solitude. O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than service to your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? In other words, persons that want benedictions, it's often something from the category of matter. But he's now saying, I'm beyond that kind of attraction. And how did that happen? Well, it happened by the association of a devotee. Who was that devotee? Gargamuni. And because of the association of Gargamuni, I've been in quest searching for you. I've been so distracted and so distracted and so distracted. But now you've come. And by your coming, I no longer have material attraction. So you're asking me for a benediction? Thanks, but no thanks. Therefore, O Lord, having put aside all objects of material desire, which are bound to the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness, I'm approaching you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for shelter. You are not covered by mundane designations. Rather, you are the supreme, absolute truth, full in pure knowledge and transcendental to the material modes. Last verse. For so long, I have been pained by troubles in this world and have been burning with lamentation. My 6 enemies are never satiated, and I can find no peace. Therefore, O giver of shelter, O supreme soul, please protect me. O Lord, in the midst of danger, I have by good fortune approached your lotus feet, which are the truth and which thus make one fearless and free from sorrow. Quite a speech, huh? Now, Krishna arranged all of this. All of this, including Kalyavana coming when Kalyavana came. There's a purpose to all of this. Each of the events, they may seem disconnected or coincidental. They're not. Just Krishna's unfolding pastimes. He wants to reciprocate with Mucukunda. He wants to many things. He wants to arrange for what's going to come starting tomorrow evening is his marriage with Rukmini. So it's time to marry Rukmini. So to marry Rukmini, there's some events. And one of those events is the building of Dwarka. So the building of Dwarka happened because Kalyavana came from one side. The 18th time Jarasandha came from the other side. So Krishna had to build Dwarka. He didn't have to. He could have just finished them all. He had to build Dwarka. So he built Dwarka, came back on the battlefield. And so he didn't have to touch the demon Mucukunda. The demon Kalyavana. Kalyavana was taken care of by Mucukunda. Because somebody's going to be cindered when Mucukunda wakes up. He gave a little service to Mucukunda. And gave him the opportunity to have this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful exchange. And words of humility. And how it concludes, how this chapter concludes, is very interesting. That Krishna's heard all this nice glorification and expressions of humility. What's he going to say? Very interesting. O Emperor, before it was my dear friend. Now it's O Emperor. Great ruler, your mind is pure and potent. Though I enticed you with benedictions, your mind was not overcome by material desires. I'll fulfill all your desires. And all his desires was just give me shelter at your lotus feet. Please don't add. Very similar to the mood of Prahlad. Many of you know the story of Prahlad. He was also offered in different ways, 3 different ways. He said, no thanks. But one of those ways was in our relationship, there's nothing else between us besides you're the master, I'm the servant. There's not anything else. This is not a merchant's exchange. I do something, you do something for me. So please don't ask like that. Our relationship is not a mercantile relationship. Our relationship is a service relationship. So I don't want anything. Otherwise, it'd be material. The pure goes down to want something from Krishna. I was just listening to Prabhupada this morning. Prabhupada was appreciating the mood of Mother Yasoda because Queen Kunti was appreciating, and yeah, Queen Kunti was appreciating the mood of Mother Yasoda, just simply wanting to serve Krishna. Of course, Kunti also wanted to. But most persons, if they go to God, they want something. You go to a big person, you want something. But the nature of love is you don't want something. No, the absolute purity of the resident of Vrindavan is being approached here by Mucukunda. He doesn't want anything. So what's Krishna going to say? I enticed you with benedictions, yet your mind was not overcome by material desires. Understand that I enticed you with the benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material blessings. The minds of non-devotees who engage in such practices as pranayama are not fully cleansed of material desires. Thus, O king, material desires are again and again seen to rise in their mind. There's a nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya says, those things that are desired by impersonalists, mukti, those things that are desired by materialists, bhukti, and those things that are desired by meditators or yogis, that you want siddhis, bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakale ashanta. Same as what's being said here. One who has that kind of desiring something that's in the material realm, or even something I want free from this material realm, he could have asked, please give me liberation. He didn't ask. But because those kinds of desires, sakale ashanta, the mind becomes agitated, disturbed. Some persons think my mind is disturbed because I don't get. Mind is disturbed if you get. Because it's the flip side of duality. Stay in the realm of duality, wait a while. This turns into that. That turns back to this. It's the nature of being in the material atmosphere. So Krishna is appreciating that Mucukunda passed his test. Wander, so now his instruction. Wander this earth at will, with your mind fixed on me. May you always possess such unfailing devotion for me. Then, because you followed the principles of a Kshatriya, you killed living beings while hunting and performing other duties. You must vanquish the sins thus incurred by carefully executing penances while remaining surrendered unto me. Now, my understanding, there is no purport or commentary here. My understanding is it's part of the duty, the religious duty of a Kshatriya to practice their fighting skills when it comes to necessity for protecting their citizens. So there's not sin incurred for that kind of fighting or killing. But Krishna is saying that, you know, you did. And so you have sin. So you have to purify yourself from sin. Last sentence in this whole chapter. O king, in your very next life, so he's not going to go back to Godhead, although he's this pure devotee who's understanding, you know, Janma karma chumedhyam yam evam yoveti tatvata chakva deham purnar janma 90. He's not going to go back to Godhead. Krishna is saying, in your very next life, you'll become an excellent Brahmana, the greatest well-wisher of all creatures, and certainly come to me alone. So it doesn't say, and my understanding is, Krishna had some service for him. So if Krishna has some service for us, what better fortune can we have than having something that Krishna directly wants? Now, what about Krishna's test? Have you ever been tested by Krishna? All of us have. It's not the privilege only of Mucukunda. Krishna tested the gopis more than once. He would sometimes just disappear. And one of the things it's described, what Krishna would do when he disappeared, is he would hide, because he wanted to see how they would respond to his disappearing. It's right in the middle section of the 10th canto. Then he suddenly showed up, having seen how they went mad in their feelings of love. He was enjoying the intensity and intensifying their love for him. Not that he didn't know. He's omniscient. But testing doesn't mean he doesn't know. He's exhibiting. Another nice example, very nice example, is Vamana binding Bali Maharaj. After Bali Maharaj surrendered everything, going against the word of Shukracharya, because Scripture says you surrender everything to Vishnu, and he's saying don't surrender to him because he's Vishnu. Well, I can't follow that because that's not what Scripture says. So he violated his spiritual master's order. He surrendered everything to Krishna, and Krishna bound him up like a criminal. And there were people standing around saying, this is bad. How can he do this? And Vamana then said, I did this just to show you all. Just see how exalted is Bali Maharaj. So testing is perhaps to show the character and quality, like the gopis or like Mucukunda. In that story, in the purport of the Bali Maharaj description, Prabhupada writes in the purport, it's nice, it's important. Krishna never tests us beyond our capacity to succeed and pass the test. And Krishna gives us the strength to pass the test. So it's both. Whatever strength we have to do the right thing at the right way in the right time, where does that strength come from? Or where does the intelligence come from? Because free will choice is always with the living entity. That's something that's never taken from us. It's always with us, intrinsic to the soul, as much as being a soul is who we are. We're part of Krishna, who has unlimited free will. We're tiny parts of Krishna. We have tiny free will. It's always with us. So the focus at this point is going to Krishna's testing Mucukunda. So what's the test? He wants to exhibit to us, this is the kind of devotion that is most pleasing to Krishna. We can read about it. You know, there's the concept, the philosophy, and then there's the practical example. There's the prachar and there's the achar. Mucukunda is showing by example his exalted character. And we wouldn't even know about him unless Krishna made this arrangement to find him in the cave and the whole thing. He'd be just an obscure name. We wouldn't even have heard of him. It's something like what Queen Kunti says about Krishna. One of the reasons for Krishna to appear, some people say, he came to give fame to Yadu and the Yadu dynasty. And it's true. Because who would know anything about Yadu? Nobody would know anything about Yadu. But because Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty, we know something. How many kings we don't know anything about? Too many. But we know about Yadu. Or we know about Ikshvaku. And Mucukunda is from the Ikshvaku line. No, it's there in Ramayana. But so, because the Lord appeared in the Ikshvaku dynasty, Lord Ramachandra. And Krishna spoke of him in Bhagavad Gita. So, some very ancient, so we know about the ancient person because of the importance Krishna or Lord Ramachandra or the personality of Godhead. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that there's a strength or a potency that comes when one's intelligence is strong. Meaning, where does intelligence come from? Super soul, right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Buddhi, intelligence comes from Krishna, super soul. Mataksmatir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. Knowledge comes from Krishna. Forgetfulness comes from Krishna. Remembrance comes from Krishna. So if one stays fixed, even in a trying circumstance, that's strength. And the way in which that strength is being imparted is intelligence. And intelligence can direct the mind. The mind can remain unwavering if there's strength and strong intelligence, which is given by Krishna. And Krishna gives that to persons who simply want him. Supposing you're a nice devotee. Just close your eyes and imagine you're a nice devotee. You're a nice devotee, and you want, not only once upon a time when I was a new devotee, I wanted to be in a nice, loving relationship with Krishna, but supposing you're such a nice devotee, it didn't waver. Supposing that were the case. And it just got stronger and stronger. And it's not happening. And it's not happening. And it's not happening. So what are you going to do? No, for the most part, it doesn't continue like that. For the most part, bhakti follows the sine curve pattern. It goes up and then it goes down. Then it goes up and then it goes down. Then it goes up a little bit and goes down again a little bit. Generally, that's the pattern. Supposing you're a good devotee, and you stay with it. Whatever level of bhakti you begin with, you stay with it. It doesn't waver. Your effort doesn't waver. The experience may be higher and lower, but your effort doesn't waver, supposing that happens. And there's no sign from Krishna. Where's Krishna? For example, supposing you try to be attentive when chanting. Anyone ever try to be attentive when chanting? It's quite a challenge, isn't it? The mind wavers. For how many mantras in a row? How many? You get the idea. Effort is required and mercy is required. So Krishna is testing us, supposing we're trying to chant attentively, or supposing we're trying to stay fixed, so fixed, we're actually a good instrument in disciplic succession's hand, or Krishna's hand. And little by little, supposing it does happen a little bit, then the tendency is to get proud. We're really in the grips of Maya. Pure devotion is rare, but it's what we're striving for. And so whether it comes quickly or not quickly, however long, we stay with it. And when Krishna sees, however long Krishna wants to test us, that Prabhupada's words, you worship Krishna in such a way that one day Krishna will say to you, I'm like this. And that gives a faithful devotee hearing that, because Prabhupada isn't pulling our leg. It's how it works. One day Krishna will say, I am like this. It's not quite like that light switch that keeps flicking off and on in the back of the room. It's not quite like a light switch, off and on, off and on. It's more little variable. But steadiness and bhakti, there we go, there's the light gets switching again. Is there someone hitting a switch upstairs, or it's just blinking? Okay. Okay. So don't be like that light switch. Stay on. And however long it takes, that's how long it takes. I attended a japa retreat once, and Giriraj Maharaj was sharing something. He was sitting with Prabhupada one morning in Juhu, after Mangal Arati and before the 6 a.m. morning walk, because Prabhupada would go out at 6 a.m., come back at 7 for greeting the deities, etc. So between 6 and 7, he's sitting with Prabhupada, and it was just the two of them in Prabhupada's quarters at Juhu. Some of you may have been there. It's like a nice space, very quiet. And it's just the two of them chanting. Giriraj Maharaj was sharing. He was feeling, wow, it can't get any better than this. Here I am with a pure devotee. We're taking the holy name and chanting the holy name together during Brahma Muhurta hours. Doesn't get any better than this. Then all of a sudden Prabhupada stopped. He didn't look at Giriraj Maharaj, but just he stopped, so Giriraj Maharaj stopped. And Prabhupada lifted his beads from his bead bag, held them in the air like this, and then looked at Giriraj Maharaj and said, it took me 30 years to perfect my chanting. Now, I don't know how to take that, but that's what Prabhupada said. And Giriraj Maharaj reflected, I was thinking at that time, a young man, 30 years. Oh, boy. And now 40 years later, if only I could perfect my chanting. How does that, for perfection, or the further purification, whatever it is that we have, that's bhakti, And whatever we have that's not bhakti, further purification. So determination for purification. To then that then Krishna will one day speak to us and say, "I'm like this." In other words, our relationship is not blocked by distraction and illusion. So Mucukunda had achieved that, and Krishna was being shown. Krishna was showing the world. Here's the phrase: "O Emperor, great ruler, your mind is pure and potent. Though I enticed you with benedictions, your mind was not overcome by material desires. Understand that I enticed you with benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material benedictions." Here's a nice example. When Krishna tested Rukmini just to see what she would do or say, when he said, "I'm unworthy, you should leave me, find another husband." Finally, this is the conclusion of the chapter. Verse 62 of this chapter, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur tells from a different Purana. Mucukunda thought, "Alas, alas, Krishna wants to separate me from his association from now on. This can't be. It just can't be." Noticing Mushikunda's great anxiety, Krishna then thought as follows: "In this incarnation, he should not associate with me directly. All the personal assistants in my past times have taken birth in Dwarpa Yuga, such as Uddhava, Akrura, Arjuna, and Yudhishthira. Mucukunda, however, is extremely old, having taken birth in the very beginning of this Manvantar. When people see him, they will laugh and say, 'Aha! Who is this very tall and stout man who is such a poor match for the Lord?' Even now, during the pastime of fleeing from Jarasandha, coming up, Krishna is going to run from Jarasandha, as well as in the later pastimes, such as the kidnapping of Rukmini, it will not be at all fitting for this person to be associated with me while I'm fighting the likes of Shalva and others. He will take these opponents of mine and crush them in his hands like mosquitoes. What excuse can I come up with, therefore, to separate him from my association?" After thinking like this, Krishna decided that the only means to accomplish this would be to speak some false words in order to mislead Mucukunda. Thus he spoke this verse. You killed some people when you were Kshatriya, or animals, and so you have to purify yourself. And then, this is Vishwanath. In your very next birth, you will be the best friend of all living entities, Sarvabhuta Surittama. At that time, you and I will act for their benefit by giving them transcendental knowledge as suits the circumstances. Becoming a universally respected and learned Brahmana, you will attain me alone due to your lack of possessiveness and mood of renunciation. In other words, you will remain in my association in your next birth. So with that, he sent Mucukunda off to the North Country, and that's where we're going to begin tomorrow night. He's going to be sitting there in the Himalayas somewhere doing what Krishna asked him to do. Krishna's pastimes. outside of Vrindavan. A little different. The mood is different. Quite different. See if there's some discussion.
Rakesh Maharaj, um, you described about Yavanas, how they're coming from Yayati. So I also commonly seen the Srimad Bhagavatam purports and even some Chaitanya Charitamrita purports, uh, how Yavanas are described, Yavanas and Malachas are described together. And usually the way it is described, Prabhupada describes, is like meat eaters and those who do not follow Vedic regulations like that. Until now, I thought it's just a category of people who are not following.
There's different uses of the term. What I said, it came up in a discussion yesterday, and Rishna found the reference where Prabhupada writes in his Bhaktivedanta purports what I just said. So it can have different applications, specific and general.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I would like to. The entire pastime was very, very interesting to go through. And I would like to understand the Muchukunda's history, like his pastime, like his history as battlefield, as a warrior, and all these experiences that he mentioned, that he thought he was great, but his pride was such that right now he was feeling so humble.
Yes.
But did all these experiences bring him to this humility, or is there the experiences did give him
there
any
a what?
Did his experiences give him any humility at the end, or is his experiences are nothing? It's just a matter of
Well, experience has to do. All of our experiences have to do with purification, and until there's purification, there's a mix. So he had Krishna Bhakti, and he had some other stuff. No, pride, a great hero, this and that and the other thing. No, it was service to the demigods. They had requested him. He didn't go raise his hand, and they brought him because he was so qualified, and he was subservient to them. He was so. Your question specifically was his experience, the cause of his humility. It's a concomitant factor, but humility ultimately was seeing Krishna. No, the same as that, which come first? Does humility come first and then see Krishna, or you see Krishna and then you become humble? It's not exactly one is the cause of the other. We can say, because of his bhakti, he had become humble. And when his bhakti peaked by seeing Krishna, then his humility also peaked. So it's not exactly a cause-effect dynamic.
Just a follow-up, Maharaj. So because he had bhakti in his heart,
yes.
So whatever experiences that went through was, can we take as Krishna's mercy to bring more humility into his heart?
Not just more humility, more of everything. More sense of connection with Krishna. Now, there are a lot of things going on that he describes, riding on an elephant and traveling with his soldiers and conquering in all directions, and there was some pride, passion.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Purity comes with, so in a subset of purity is humility, You're looking for cause effect, and I'm not giving you a yes to the cause and effect. Bhakti is the cause, and there's subsets of bhakti. There are characteristics of bhakti. Humility is one of them. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. The prayers are really wonderful. It reminds me of the prayers, same mode, that they don't want anything material. Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, and we were recently reading Prithu Maharaj was also praying on the same lines, that so the what they want is that unflinching devotion, or Mama Janmani Janmanishwari, any life they wanted to be in service to Krishna. So the same Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shiksha Ashtaka prayer also.
Yes.
So that means they're willing to take birth again wherever it is, wherever there is a service. They are not asking for a, to be liberated. Like, Prithu Maharaj, after he's done, he went back to Vaikuntha and the Vimana. It's not like that. They're willing to take birth. Is that understanding correct?
There's yes, but a qualified yes. There's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. And in the most perfect, there are exhibitions of what may look like the opposite of humility, or boastfulness, or apparent pride. That's in the most perfect. Because, in other words, when one comes to the stage of spontaneous love, the exhibitions of any quality are become fully transcendental. And the fully transcendental person may do something that doesn't look humble, but it's arising from spontaneous love. There's a nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, when this is Lord Chaitanya saying, when one has actually attained prema, then it's not possible to understand the heart and the mind and the activities of such a person. So I'm making that little exception so that when there is an expression of ecstatic love, we don't misjudge it using the worldly yardsticks. And Vrindavan is one classic example. The cowherd boys and the gopas and the gopis would, in the platform of spontaneous love, would say and do things that were like outrageous. One of the classic ones from Nectar Devotion is when the cowherd boys would have wrestling, regularly Sridham would defeat Krishna. And Sridham would insult Krishna. What kind of a big man are you? You always lose. But Krishna enjoys, because it enjoys because of the intimacy of love. So I'm just adding a qualifier to the yes answer. There may be exhibitions of spontaneous prema that are not to be understood by worldly measurements. That's all.
Just two follow-up questions. Mucukunda received the seed of bhakti with the association of Garga Muni, and wanted to know if since he received that benediction, also that he will see Krishna, was he eagerly looking in his endeavors that, okay, I want to see Krishna?
Yes. He was anticipating.
Uh,
Kabe habe bolo se di namar. When will that day come? And when he did see, he didn't recognize. He had to ask, who are you? Maybe you're the personality of Godhead. But, please tell me who you are. So anyway.
Was there any information about when Krishna said that he will take birth as a Brahmana, universally famous?
It was where?
He will become a famous Brahmana in the next life. Is there information who that was?
No, we have no idea. Nor the service he did in that, we don't know. I don't know of anything. I've asked. I don't know of anything. Anyone else? Yes? Online. Good.
Yeah, this question is from Keshava Madhav Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna, my dear Guru Maharaj. Sometimes I feel like it is not so much hard to chant the holy name with a focus, but wanting to chanting the holy name with attention. I feel like this could be difficult.
Yeah.
What do you think, Guru Maharaj? Basically, what I am saying is that the desire to chant with attention requires more willpower than chanting with attention. Is that correct?
It requires more
More attention.
willpower.
Yeah, more willpower than chanting with attention. Is that correct?
What's the two options? Chanting with willpower.
Desire to chant with attention requires more willpower than chanting with attention.
Wanting, like the desire, the eagerness to chant with attention is harder to develop than, actually chanting with attention.
That's what's being said?
Yeah, Maharaj.
What she just said is what he's asking?
Yeah, similarly. Basically, he says
The desire is more difficult than the actual activity.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't make sense. The question doesn't make sense to me because if once the desire is there, then chanting with attention is facilitated. But to get to the desire is there, it takes some effort. So they're equal because they're equal. So now that you have my answer, you can continue to try to have the desire. That's really where the rubber hits the road. And then stay with it, not just, intermittently. That's to become attached to Krishna, there's a cultivation. Although attachment to Krishna or our relationship with Krishna or love for Krishna is already there, but the covering is pretty thick. So, sure, it takes effort. And when the effort is fructified, then it's easy. But it's the effort to be attentive. It's not mechanical, doesn't work. Okay. Anything else? Online?
That's all, Maharaj.
You have something.
No, that's all, Maharaj.
Huh?
That's all.
That's it. Anyone else? Okay.
But in Chaitanya Leela, Muchukunda has any role? Maharaj?
I don't have the answer to that. There may be. I don't. I'll look it up as soon as we end. I can't do it while we're discussing. You want how to look it up? Okay. Gora Godadesh Tapika. You have that access? Okay, good luck. Anything else? Okay. In the back? All the way in the back?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So testing, right? So when we hear Srimad
Hold the
Bhagavatam,
microphone a little closer. Yes.
when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the pure devotees always go through a lot of sufferings, Pandavas, Prahlad Maharaj. So when we look at those, is it also Krishna is testing them in addition to their, glorification? Maharaj, how should we look at those?
Well, it's not that pure devotees in the Srimad Bhagavatam always go through suffering. That's a premise. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. More so than others, let's say. Pandavas for sure. Prahlad Maharaj for sure. But others, not the same. So, is it your question specifically is it a measure of their purity that they have to undergo more suffering? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're asking? Something like that? No. Let's take, Maharaj Ambarish. He was life-threatening, but he didn't undergo any suffering because he was protected. And instead, he was giving forgiveness, asking Sudarshan to to lay off Durvasa Muni. So it's not quite like that. Not quite like that. There are some cases, yes, and when there are some cases like that, it's commensurate with the person's exhibition of their greatness and Krishna intensifying as he did with the gopis, because they weren't becoming pure. They were pure, but their love was intensified by Krishna disappearing. So it's not a one-to-one relationship. The greatness of the devotee is commensurate with the amount of suffering they have to undergo. I'm thinking of just yesterday, we heard the whole pastime of Odana Shasti. And one of there are two devotees that are involved in that pastime. One of them is Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and the other is his dear friend Swarup Damodar. Now, those names may not mean something to somebody who's not familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita, but Swarup Damodar was one of two most intimate associates of Mahaprabhu in Puri. And we don't hear anything about his undergoing suffering. Because, if you have a material body, there's suffering. But there's not, he is a perfectly exalted Vaishnav. He's Lalita in Krishna's pastimes. Perfectly exalted Vaishnav. We don't hear about any suffering. But his friend, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, underwent suffering. But his suffering was, in his dream, Jagannath and Balaram came and slapped him silly for 24 minutes, non-stop. And his cheeks were swollen when he woke up in the morning because they were angry with him for criticizing the pujaris, his devotees, for giving him a starched garment instead of a washed and then remove the starch, give him that garment. He was criticizing. You don't do like that. So he suffered. His cheeks were swollen. He didn't want to go out in the public and explain, where'd you get those swollen cheeks? Oh, Lord Jagannath and Baladev, they punched me out in my sleep. Or slapped me silly. See the finger marks on my cheeks? So, but he understood it's the most incredible mercy. And Srup Damodar said, I've never heard anything like this before. But I see it. I can see their finger marks on your cheeks. So you're the recipient of such mercy. You get the idea. So mercy to Srup Damodar and mercy to Pundarik Vidyanidhi, although they both underwent something different. So it's not a one-to-one relationship. Suffering and the pure devotee. The more pure, the more suffering. Some circumstances. Okay, I think that's it. You have something?
Yes.
Okay.
Maharaj, you were mentioning about Kunti Devi was praising Yashoda Mata.
Yes.
So is that for the service mode or for the parenting service? I did
They
not
both
get
have
it.
parental affection. Kunti has parental affection. Vatsalya Bhav. She's her aunt, or Krishna's aunt, right?
Yes. Yes.
So she has parental affection. But she doesn't have the same intimacy of love as Mother Jasoda. And she's honoring that intimacy of love of Mother Jasoda. She's way up there and I'm down here. And she's not, she's honoring her. Does that respond to your question? Now you're clear about it? Okay. My understanding of part of that glorification is the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, or compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva, wants us even in the first canto to understand the 10th canto with a little hint that someone that sees Krishna clearly, Kunti sees Krishna as the personality of Godhead, and she's looking up to Mother Jasoda as one who doesn't see Krishna as the personality of Godhead. But she sees the intimacy of love, and that's what she's looking up to. It's part of the whole message of Srimad Bhagavatam, right there in first canto. And there's other, in the next chapter, Bhishma Dev also looks up to the associates of Vrindavan. So we're getting that picture right in the seed form, and then it just expands and expands and expands. But the most exalted position of love of the residents of Vrindavan compared to anyone. So then it comes this perfect, more perfect, most perfect. We don't say, we must not say Queen Kunti and the Pandavas are not pure. Or Queen Kunti is not pure. So we don't say that. She's pure. At the same time, most perfect. And why? Because of the intimacy. She could chastise Krishna. When Krishna came to pay his respects before going back to Dwarka, he came and touched her feet. And she wanted to touch his feet because she saw him as the personality of Godhead. although she has parental affection. I mean, it's a little bit of a conflict, isn't it? Parental affection, and your nephew is God. She knew it. She's writing her prayers. So her heart is looking up to Krishna, and also looking up to Mother Jasoda because of the intimacy of Mother Jasoda's love. She could do things that are unthinkable for Kunti. Chase Krishna with a stick and Krishna cries. Unthinkable for Kunti. But she knows it, so she's looking up to Mother Jasoda. Okay, thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. Now I just remembered, in my suitcase